What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to be discussing even more new iOS 18.2 and 18.3 features and changes. We're going to talk about why so many people are saying that Apple Intelligence is a failure, the upcoming folding iPad Pro and the folding iPhone, a big AirTag upgrade is coming soon, and much more. And as always, if you want to stay updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and also check out the Apple Den newsletter. Okay, so just as expected, this week we did see the release of iOS 18.3 Beta 1. So this went out to registered developers and also to public beta testers. So I did post my What's New video when that did get released on Monday. And of course, as you saw in that video, we're not going to see a second beta until some point in January. So we're going to have a small little drought when it comes to beta updates for the next few weeks because of the holidays, just as Apple does every year. But as far as what was actually new in iOS 18.3 Beta 1, also as expected, there wasn't a lot. Like the biggest change in 18.3 Beta 1 is the fact that robot vacuums were added to HomeKit, at least in the code. So as of right now, there are no compatible robot vacuums that I'm aware of, so I cannot test this, but that has been added in the code, and it looks like that will be coming in iOS 18.3. And by the way, Apple was wrong about releasing this feature in 2024. They said that was coming in 2024, but 18.3 is not going to be released until 2025. So Apple was wrong, and they're kind of behind once again with that feature. It's not just Apple Intelligence, it's even features like that. And there were also a couple of very minor changes as well, like inside of our settings. If we go into accessibility and then scroll down right here to camera control, we now have a dark mode icon for that. That was mysteriously missing in 18.2. And then for the image playground application and the Genmoji feature, you now have the up and down arrows where you can rate the results. So as expected, not a lot changed and really not a lot to talk about with iOS 18.3 Beta 1. We'll talk more about the performance and the release dates later on. But I also want to touch on iOS 18.2 since the majority of you guys are most likely on 18.2 right now. And we actually got an update on the Find My feature. So you know how in 18.2 we got the Find My feature where airlines can see your AirTags in the Find My application, on their system. Well, that's actually rolled out to more airlines now, and it's now supported by 14 airlines. So as you guys know, as I talked about last week, it started out with United. They were the first ones to adopt this feature, and now it's available on 14 airlines, and I'm sure that will grow, by the day or by the month, I should say. But as far as everything else in iOS 18.2, it's running fine for me on my main device. So as you guys know, I'm running 18.3 Beta 1 on my test device, and I'm still running iOS 18.2 on my main device until we get closer to that second beta. Now, I'm still using Genmoji like every single day, whether I'm creating a new Genmoji or just using one of the ones I've created beforehand down here in my emoji picker, which by the way, I got to give Apple credit. They did fix, these stickers a lot, recently in recent months. I had a lot of issues. You can see I still have a lot of blank spots. So it's still not perfect, but it has gotten a lot better since the 18.2 betas where I had tons of issues. And by the way, you can see the little bug here with 18.3 Beta 1. We have an emoji outside of the blue bubble there. So interesting. That's just a typical UI bug for a beta. The Apple Sports application got a new update this week, version 2.3, and there are 4 changes. So we have league standings. You can catch up on scoring plays and big moments with key plays. That is the feature. And then also it says when available, soccer and baseball game pages now include pre-game lineups. And then lastly, we have schedule a live activity for any game on the Today tab. So you can schedule a live activity so it runs as that game starts. And if you're somebody who uses Apple Maps on Safari on the web, that got a new feature this week. So it got look around support, one of my favorite features on Apple Maps. It's now on the web version of Apple Maps. So you can look around in different places where it's available. But as far as anything else with iOS 18.3, 18.2, or really anything else software related, there's not a lot going on this week. There was not a ton to talk about this week, unlike last week where we were filled to the brim with news to talk about in terms of software. Now, I do want to talk about the performance here because if we go to my Geekbench, I did run a fresh Geekbench here on 18.3, and I've been having issues with 18.2, by the way. We'll talk about that here in a moment because it's been, I didn't want to talk about it when it happened just the first time, but now it's happened 2 additional times. So we need to talk about 18.2. But anyways, yeah, but let's talk about 18.3 first. So we got a 3504 on the single core, 8440 on the multi-core. If we go to our history, you can see that is a higher score on the single core, but as far as multi-core, it is a little bit lower. So 18.3 beta 1 is consistently scoring lower than 18.2, the final release, which is expected. But as far as overall performance goes, 18.3 beta 1 feels about the same as 18.2, and dare I say, it actually seems a little bit better for one specific reason. So this week and last week on 18.2, when I was on the RC and on the final release, my device has randomly resprung 2 different times, like random resprings. Actually, one of them was a full-on reboot. So really 2 random resprings and 1 full-on reboot. And 2 of those times, I was just simply watching a YouTube video in the background. My phone was locked and I had the video playing in the background, and I was off doing something else in the kitchen and my phone just rebooted. So that was an issue. And then it also happened another time just randomly when I was on the home screen. I was actually on my phone using it and it randomly resprung there as well. So really weird issues going on with the final version of 18.2. I don't really know how to explain that. That hasn't really happened to me since 18.0. So I'm not sure what's going on. I don't get any type of crash logs or anything like that. So yeah, for some reason, I'm not having that issue on 18.3 beta 1. So I stopped using 18.2 for like a couple of days and just tested it on 18.3 beta 1. And I'm not having that random reboot / respring issue. So really weird stuff going on. 18.3, like I said in my What's New video, it's really not too much different from 18.2. Yes, it's going to score lower. Yes, you're going to have more bugs. It is a beta. Technically, it's not going to be as good a performance as a final release, but they're pretty close in the day-to-day, at least from my experience. Now, obviously, everybody's going to have a different experience, but for me, it's been pretty similar. And, a bonus is that I'm not having the random bugs like the random resprings that I have on 18.2 on my main device. Now, as far as the battery life goes, battery life has been fine for me on 18.3 beta 1 as well. Now, 18.2 did improve battery life for me over 18.1 and 18.1.1, but as far as 18.2 and 18.3, they're about the same for me. I think 18.2 does still get a little bit better battery life than 18.3 beta 1, but it's hard to tell since I'm using a Pro Max versus a Pro right here. But, there's not a huge difference that I've noticed. I still have to charge my phone once per day. Okay, so let's talk about that next iOS release. So we're most likely going to enter a semi-drought here over the next couple of weeks when it comes to software releases, because I do not anticipate Apple releasing any type of new software for the next 2 weeks. So next week is going to be the week of Christmas. So Merry Christmas if you celebrate. That is going to be on Wednesday the 25th. And then after that, we will have the week of New Year's. So New Year's Eve is on the 31st, and Apple does not typically release software on either of those 2 weeks. So it's looking like that we're going to see iOS 18.3 beta 2 on the week of January 6th. And unfortunately, I most likely will not be able to post a video when that does get released because I will be in CES that week. However, we should be seeing 18.3 beta 2 the week of January 6th. Now, after that, we should be seeing iOS 18.2.1 for the public. So we're talking about 18.3 as a beta. The next public release is most likely going to be 18.2.1, and I would expect that to come potentially as early as the week of the 6th as well. So we could see that as early as the week of the 6th or the week of January 13th. And that, of course, is just going to be a simple bug fix and security patch update. No new features. It's just going to fix any type of outstanding issues that were left remaining with 18.2. And then as far as the final release of 18.3, I would expect to see that most likely on the very last week of January. So maybe the week of January 27th or sometime in early February. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news, and let's start with Apple Intelligence. Do you think that Apple Intelligence has lived up to the hype so far? Let me know in a comment down below, because according to a new study, most people are not finding Apple Intelligence very useful. So this study found that 47% of iPhone users consider AI features to be key when choosing a new phone. However, 73% of those people report finding little to no value value in Apple Intelligence so far. Now, they did also break down the most popular features, which is pretty interesting. So writing tools is number one at 72%. We can see notification summaries is next, and then we have priority messages and cleanup after that. And interestingly, this study shows that roughly 1 in 6 iPhone users say they would consider switching to Samsung if they offered better AI features. But it's pretty funny because this study also, tested Samsung users, and they found that a whopping 87% of Samsung users say that their AI features add little to no value. So 73% of Apple users and 87% of Samsung users. So this whole AI thing is not specific to Apple. It just seems like a lot of people are not finding use in AI features, via software on a phone in general. It doesn't matter if it's Apple, Samsung, anybody. It seems like most people right now are just not finding the benefit in AI features as a whole, which to me is crazy because I use them literally every single day, but I guess it's just because most people are not as technical and not always doing work on their phone, maybe. Anyways, it doesn't end there because this week we did also see some pretty interesting criticism over Apple Intelligence and more specifically the notification summaries. And this comes from BBC. So the BBC actually complained to Apple after the Summarize notifications feature generated a false headline about, Luigi right here. So it shows that he, shot himself, which of course did not happen. After this incident, obviously the BBC was pretty mad about this. They made a whole article about it. And then also the RSF is arguing that these summaries illustrate that, quote, generative AI services are still too immature to produce reliable information for the public and should not be allowed on the market for such uses. And this whole BBC thing was not an isolated incident. We also saw this with the New York Times with some, headlines getting kind of misconstrued with the notification summaries. You see this all the time over on X or Threads. A lot of people post their screenshots of these notification summaries being wrong. But here's the thing, and here's the reality. AI is never going to be 100% accurate. Whether it's Apple, whether it's Google, whether it's OpenAI, no matter who it is, it's never going to be 100% accurate, especially when it comes to generating something out of the context that it has. And here's the other thing. Apple Intelligence is in beta right now. If you go to the Apple Intelligence page on your phone, it will say beta in big letters up top. But not only that, also, if you go onto the feature for notification summaries, it actually says something else right there as well. It says right there, summary accuracy may vary based on content. So Apple is saying that, look, this is not always going to be 100% accurate. You need to check that for yourself. And I think that's where a big issue with this whole Summarize notifications, comes from. Because for me, and maybe it's just because, I've always used it this way, I don't see the big outrage for it. Because for me, when I look at, a Summarize notification, let's say like BBC, I have 22, unread notifications. I'm just glancing at that summary to see what the, notification is about. I'm not reading it, just the summary, and just sitting there reading every single word, you know what I mean? And drawing my conclusions from that. The summaries are meant to be there so you can get a, synopsis of what those notifications entail. And that's when you tap on that bubble and see the actual full notification. I just think there's two different ways to use the feature. And I've never been in the camp that just read the summaries and just the summaries. So I don't know. I just guess that maybe Apple should clarify more how you're supposed to use the feature, because I don't think you're supposed to just read the summaries and think that's, the news. That's it. It's just supposed to show you, what's going on, and then you tap on it to get more context. It's not meant to be, the only notification that you read. And trust me, I am not giving Apple the benefit of the doubt here. I have openly said that Apple Intelligence is pretty underwhelming for now. So, and I have to say that ChatGPT, to me, the ChatGPT extension is the best part of Apple Intelligence so far. Like, yes, I use writing tools. Yes, I use Genmoji. I think both of those are excellent features, by the way. I use them all the time. I do think those are great. But the other things I don't really use that often. And to me, like I said, I think the ChatGPT extension is the best thing to happen to the iPhone in a while. And it's definitely the best part of Apple Intelligence, which is pretty funny because it's just an extension of another company's application and another company's large language model. But once again, we have to remind ourselves we are still in the very early stages. This is still round one out of probably like 20 rounds over the next 20 years years of Apple Intelligence. Like we still have a long ways to go for Apple Intelligence to grow up and become, what it's meant to become. So we're still on round one, and we haven't even seen the main feature in round one yet. So with iOS 18.4, that's when we're going to see the, new Siri with app intents, where you can, interact with applications with Siri and things like that. That is going to be a big deal. And I'm hoping that does not flop, because right now, again, based on this study, it looks like a lot of people think that Apple Intelligence is just a massive flop. So let me know in a comment down below. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know your thoughts. I tend to always, just speak my mind, and a lot of people don't like that I speak my mind because you may not agree with it, but let me know your thoughts. Okay, so now let's talk about foldables, more specifically a new iPad Pro foldable that we might be seeing in the next few years. So this news comes from Mark Gurman over at Bloomberg, and he says that Apple is working on a giant foldable iPad that unfolds into the size of two iPad Pros side by side. Now, how giant, you might be asking? How about 20 inches, around about 20 inches? That is huge. And they say that Apple's goal for a foldable device is to avoid the crease that runs through the middle of the screen when the device is opened up. And Gurman says that Apple also wants the screen to look like a, quote, single uninterrupted piece of glass. So this foldable iPad Pro is expected around 2028, and it is also expected to run iPadOS. And Gurman says that by 2028, iPadOS should be advanced enough to run macOS apps. But it's not just a foldable iPad Pro that we're expecting in the near future. We also got a separate report from the Wall Street Journal this week that details an upcoming foldable iPhone that's expected in 2026 to 2027. So they say that this foldable iPhone is rumored to feature an inward-facing display larger than the 6.9-inch iPhone 16 Pro Max. So it's been a little while since we've heard about a foldable iPhone. A lot of people thought that it just wasn't going to happen, but now that we have a report from the Wall Street Journal, it definitely seems like that is going to be happening at some point in the next few years. And I hope that Apple can get rid of that crease, because if they can get rid of the crease, that's going to be a massive deal, not only for Apple's foldable, but for the whole foldable market in general. And then they continue by saying that Apple will eventually release a large 19-inch MacBook with a foldable screen. I don't know how sold I am on a foldable MacBook. I think I'd like a foldable tablet and a foldable phone before a foldable Mac, but who knows? We'll see. And then in this same report, the Wall Street Journal laid out some details on the upcoming iPhone 17 Air that has me even more excited for this thin device. And take it from somebody who doesn't even care about having the thinnest device. What the Wall Street Journal is talking about has me pretty excited for it, because they said that starting next year, Apple plans to introduce an iPhone that will be thinner than the approximately 8mm profile of the current models. They said that this model is intended to be cheaper than Pro models with a simplified camera system to reduce costs. And speaking of the iPhone 17 Pros, remember last week how we talked about how Apple might actually adopt the Pixel-like, camera bump on the back where it has that long camera bump that's kind of in the center of the back of the phone? Well, it looks like that might not actually be the case, because according to Instant Digital on Weibo, he said that iPhone 17 Pro is going to stick with the triangular camera design. So nothing is going to change. We're still going to have the triangle design for the triple camera setup on the back. However, I have to say it's weird that we got these rumors from multiple people saying there will be a center, pixel style camera design on one of the iPhones. And that has me wondering, maybe the iPhone 17 Air is going to be the iPhone that has that center, pixel style camera, and the Pros are going to remain with the triangle. So we'll have to wait and see. And then finally, let's talk about the AirTags too, because we have a big update on the upcoming AirTags that are coming next year. So yes, no crazy AirTag story this week. There were not any good ones out there, but I did want to still keep the theme kind of alive here with talking about the AirTags at the end of Apple Weekly. So we heard that from Mark Gurman here that AirTags 2 are coming next year in 2025, and that they're going to be getting a new ultra wideband chip, just like the one that was introduced in the iPhone 15. And Gurman says that this is going to significantly improve the range of the AirTag, because right now the AirTag can be located with precision finding from about 20 to 30 meters away, depending on conditions. This new model, however, should triple that range by using the next generation generation ultra wideband chip. So that is going to be a big deal when it comes to the AirTag 2. But I think the thing that I'm also wondering the most about is that, yes, it's probably going to have a very similar, if not the same design, but I'm really curious to see if Apple is going to switch how they do the power on the AirTag, because I know people who, when they run out of battery on their AirTag, they just buy new ones. They're constantly buying new ones because they don't know you can replace the battery. So I'm almost wondering if Apple's going to have it where you can recharge the AirTag, but that is yet to be seen or even rumored. Anyways, guys, that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on next week's Apple Weekly episode. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.